Ladies, welcome back. This is the after show part where we get to dive into some of the questions that we did get for our 2023 influencer marketing predictions. I will not mince words or waste time. Let's dive straight into the questions. So here is the first question. Can we get influencers to work on a CPA basis? For example, on my e-commerce site, I have an extensive network of affiliate marketers on my e-commerce site to sell my product, and I pay them per order generated. Can we do this with influencers? I feel like they're describing affiliate marketing there, but would love to get any additional thoughts.
Yeah, I would say I would phrase it as affiliate marketing to the influencer rather than telling them you would want to pay them by CPA, because they likely don't know what that acronym means.
Yeah.
And what they're describing in this question is an affiliate program where you pay based on the amount of sales they bring in, or conversions based on their language. So as long as you outline to the creator how much you're paying per conversion brought in, they will definitely understand what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. I like that.
I agree. Also, if you're sorry. Go ahead.
No, go.
I was going to say also, if you're able to gift them whatever the main item or items that you like to primarily advertise on your site would be in addition to whatever you would consider CPA, which would be affiliate, that's a really great method of payment that is quite industry standard. So it's not something that would be out of bounds for you to require, and is just a different format of asking for what you're asking without having to actually give a flat rate payment.
True. The only thing that I was going to add was that I feel like anytime that you're paying any influencer or creator, it's all about negotiations. So if you only want to pay them based on revenue or based on sale, it's almost like your prerogative to do that. If you want to pay them based on impression, then it's all about how you set up your specific influencer program.
Katya,
okay. Sorry.
Can I just add one little thing?
Yes.
I will say, I think we're going to see a resurgence in affiliate in 2023. I know for the past couple of years, sometimes it can be very looked down upon, especially with influencers, because there's no guarantee on that sale. But I think with the recession coming and the amount of different types of linking platforms we're seeing in bios, I do think there's going to be an uptick in creators working on affiliate commission, and we're going to see it more popular, not a more like positive light.
Now I have a follow-up question, which I will ask. Do you guys feel that if there is this resurgence of affiliate marketing, that it will move influencer marketing to be a little bit more transactional than what we've seen really successful, which is relationship building? Is there a worry there?
I don't think so, because if we look at this as a marketing channel and seeing a product or brand 7 times, if you're a dedicated affiliate member where you're actually using the product, and I think Rachel too is meaning that it's going to come back also in an authentic way for it to be shed in that better light, where it's not just people posting their Amazon storefront, things they don't use or buy just to get affiliate, but maybe actual purposeful affiliate partnerships where you're continually posting about something because you're using it and loving it.
I like that. Great response back to the unpredictable question. The next question is a spicy question. We got multiple questions about TikTok in general. Is it going to be banned? Is it still alive? Should we spend time on it? So let's just start with a blanket. What do you see happening with TikTok in 2023? And that should help cover most of our TikTok questions.
I have many strong feelings about the future of TikTok.
I love this.
Feelings are positive. TikTok's going to be rolling out TikTok Shop, which is going to be an integration where they're really prioritizing the whitelisting paid social side of TikTok for brands that want to really be able to put like quantitative and qualitative data behind their kind of spark ads and really directly link to specific product pages and specific like shopping integrated post like items, similar to the way Instagram does with, you know, the UTM links within links. And they are prioritizing that so heavily, which makes me think they really see a future. You can literally look on the TikTok careers site and see that they are building out teams within teams, showing me that there's growth happening on that side of things. And on top of that, with TikTok, I see so much future and potential for brands to really get involved with like hyper localized nano influencers within their own communities, which is stuff I talk about all the time and I'm really passionate about, especially for brands that have storefronts and specific like DMA locations that are relevant. So maybe if you have a chain or something and you have a specific person that owns that chain or operates that chain and they really want to work with influencers or creators to drive business within a specific area, let's say like around Texas and it's, you know, around colleges, you can work with creators around those universities because they are also going to be prioritizing content and working with rolling out features around location-based targeting. They're actually working on beta testing that in, I want to say Indonesia right now, where they're working on beta testing, being able to see a page that's not like you're following and not your For You, but just like near you, which I think is really cool. So I see a bright future for TikTok. I also think it's the only way that we're going to be able to continue to see these absolutely massive viral upticks and spikes in products selling out and selling themselves. You just like don't see that on any other platform, and you don't see it being done from people that don't have historic presences online. Like the Alex Earls of the world didn't exist without the virality and like incredible algorithmic creations that TikTok has rolled out. So TikTok's not leaving. Okay. So you got to get on board.
Long story short, TikTok is not going away. Does anybody else have anything to add in regards to that? Rachel?
I also think just as a consumer, I think this would be a fun exercise. Who out of the six of us, who checks TikTok first over Instagram? Because
Oh my God,
100%.
And over Google for sure.
Yeah. Should we all pull up screen time and look at TikTok?
No, we should not.
The interesting part for me is I still check Instagram instinctively, but get off of it almost immediately. Like I get on, I see like the first 4 stories that like, you know, are my top like people, and then I get off of it. But like once I'm on TikTok, like 4 hours of my life is gone.
Yeah,
I also too have noticed that still if I hear of a new brand, my first instinct is still not to go to their website, but to go to their Instagram. Because I'm often disappointed by more like brand centric TikToks, just like aren't giving me the discoverability of what the brand actually is as a first time viewer. So I am still going to Instagram for brands, but then TikTok for literally everything else and to like search for things as well.
I even go to TikTok before Instagram for brands.
I do too, but it's not because I want to see the brand's TikTok. I want to see the authentic reviews and the unedited existence of the brand.
The UGC. It's like when you go to a site and you hope that they have like the little like PDP UGC to be like, what does this product look like on? That's what I view TikTok as.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's still my second interaction with a brand, I think. Like to discover the brand, I'm never going straight into TikTok reviews. I'm going to look at what the brand is, who they are, and their aesthetic. And then I find like jeans that I like, and then I search it on TikTok.
Interesting. I'm the opposite.
I'm the opposite too. I care less because I feel like the branding on a site or social is like so curated that I don't actually get a good feel for what it is and if I want to purchase. But I also am finding that I discover brands through TikTok. So
Because like if I'm like size 10 search, like if I'm like whatever, like AE denim size 10, like I know a size 10 curve girl is going to be the one who's posting that. So I'm only going to see it on my body type. And then I'm going to find creators that I didn't even see before. Also, I just checked and my daily average on TikTok is 3 hours and 25 minutes. So
oh my goodness.
So gross. beautiful. I don't know.
I think that what you all have also just kind of outlined and described is the way that you're engaging with social media, not just with TikTok, because I'm in a different generation. It breaks my heart to say it, but I am in a different generation. So I also utilize it a little differently. And because we are in this like creator and influencer space, I may like see something on TikTok, but then I will actually go on Instagram to look at their tagged posts, to look for the creator stuff, to see like where I see myself in them. And then sometimes I'll go back and just purchase it on TikTok if, I trust the brand and know the brand, because I've also made purchases on TikTok without knowing the brand. And now I'm like, why did I even purchase it? Like, don't even get me started on these tailored pants that took 6 weeks to get here with no communication.
See, that's a thing that I've noticed too and I also think I go to the Instagram and all these things because I was in branding previously as well. So I am very curious and passionate about what they're doing on that side. But to your point, Katya, I feel like part of our predictions too that we talked about were like a more authentic connection, where I'm kind of jaded by a lot of TikTok things now, where I'm like, okay, I tried the Abercrombie jeans. They're not that great. Have you guys never tried real jeans? Like so I'm starting to feel a little bit played by a couple purchases.
Right?
Oh my God.
But I will say too, like on the note of like predictions that we did a couple weeks ago, I have a slight change when it comes to like YouTube being like something that's going to be super present this year. I think they're still going to be present, but it's probably going to be more so YouTube Shorts. But I find myself, originally I would go to YouTube for like education purposes. Like if I were like, what vitamin C serum should I purchase? Like I'm going to go to YouTube. Now I go to TikTok. So
I hope you go to TikTok.
Also, I got back on YouTube to follow my favorite TikTokers in longer form content. Like TikTokers is what got me back in my YouTube viewing habits. Chris and I talk about this all the time. I used to be a Blair Fowler, like OG beauty YouTuber at, age 10, but TikTokers have gotten me back on YouTube. And so I think when we're talking about this prediction of like, will it go away? I think all of our suggestions is, or at least mine is, to diversify just in case. Like, it doesn't hurt to have multiple eggs in multiple baskets, but there is a power of presence, and why we're also excited to talk about TikTok.
Yeah. I would also too, based off like this conversation as well, if you're working in social media, like do a habit tracker. As soon as you open an app, like start triggering your brain to be like, why did I just open that app? So that you can start kind of figuring out where you're fitting in all of this, to see maybe where your customers are fitting too.
I agree. And look at your screen time.
We've all looked at Caroline's screen time now.
Yeah. You may be terrified, delighted, or surprised.
I will not be reporting on my screen time. Because I always go to bed early. I don't go to sleep. It's like the nighttime scroll for sure. Well, so, we just talked about like Instagram, YouTube and TikTok and the brands that we follow and whatnot, but there are a lot of services that are out there. So the next question is, how do you suggest that brands that provide services utilize influencers? I'm a big believer that there is a space for influencers and creators, regardless of what type of business, but would love to hear your takes on service providers.
I found my dentist and dental things through TikTok.
Did you really?
Yes.
That's so interesting.
And my med spa.
This is a question though that I was actually thinking about prior to this, and I think that like the service specifically would be so interesting to dive into, and this is one that I would recommend. Talk to your CSM and see if they'd be open to scheduling or not. If they're open to it, they would be open to it. Scheduling a strategy call with us to talk about your specific use case, because like Sarah said, it could be if it's a dentist or whether it's like oil changes or something, like what your service is could depend a lot on like the platform that you're on, the type of influencers you're going for, as well as like, do you have a budget, or like how are you compensating your influencers, and like what the lift is on their end as well. Everything could be just very different, in my opinion, on what the service is.
Yeah. I think as like a first kind of top of mind approach I would take is really lean into storytelling and testimonial, and like like taking your audience through that experience or that service as if they were there with you. Or I know we talk about Alex a lot, but I feel like the way she talks to her content works so well because it's like a FaceTime with a friend.
Yeah.
Right. So if I like just got micro needling done and I wanted to promote that spa or med spa, I would want to describe the experience like I would if I was calling my best friend to suggest she also go, right? So that's how I would position it. But again, I definitely agree with what we're talking about of joining a strategy session, getting more specific about what your service is, because I think you do have to get a little creative.
I also think looking at others, even if it's not your industry. So if you're in skincare, Alto does a great job. They're a rideshare kind of Uber experience, a bougie one. I think they use influencers really well, along with Heyday Skincare. So I think looking at other service providers and kind of taking a peek at how they use influencer strategy, it's all market research. So I think diving in could be really helpful.
And I think like making sure that like tap influencers and find a way to not only influencers that are already like using your service, but find a way to make sure that your service is a part of their day. Like if you are talking like an Uber type service, like Rachel was just mentioning, like making sure that your influencers have enough credit to where like your service is the one that they go to every single time that they need it, that they're not going to a competitor, so that your service pops up even more organically in their content, kind of like what Kristen was saying, and like that FaceTime aspect of like, okay, I'm going to call my best friend and like recommend this. And like, maybe I'm just in the Uber. And it pops up a lot more organically. It's something that I know that we've talked about on multiple occasions on that very organic, and just like product placement almost in your in your influencers content. And I think that can be very easily done with different services as well.
I agree. And I also just want to say, so like my actual first career, if you will, in influencer marketing was for a service, but it was really niche. It was influencer marketing for a celebrity plastic surgeon. And the service itself was actually under the knife, either like literal surgery or non-surgical services in exchange for content, which is pretty crazy. But the narrative that came out of that, because it is services for content, is if you work with a creator who has organically shared a story in one way or another about how they need your services or have yearned for your services prior to actually sharing your services, and then how your services have bettered them in the aftermath with that added value content, like that's how results end up being driven. And you may not be able to attribute it in the original link, but that's like how the aftermath, because like it's the people that are impacted heavily by you reaching out because maybe, you know, maybe you're like a service provider for meal kits and someone has been trying to lose weight and you reach out to them seeing their narrative about the fact that they have a lot of trouble cooking with their busy schedule and you impact them in that way. Like you need to put your business and your service into their narrative and their storyline and figure out the type of person and the ethos that's going to fit, because those are the people that are going to resonate. And that's how you're going to attribute and drive business. And like, it was the people that we worked with that needed mommy makeovers because they felt unconfident and were, you know, needing rectus diastasis because their internal corsets needed reshaping, that were selling the surgeries, not the people that wanted, you know, whatever and not. So the point is, find those people because those people will sell your services for sure.
Yeah, and I also think like services is such an industry. It's so interesting because if you think of the services that you use, you want to know that you're going to get the most bang for your buck. So like Kristen said, I think this is like an area for storytelling. Tell me what the experience is before I'm going to. I don't want to have buyer's remorse. You know, I think of like the service providers that I use, or I recently went to a massage. And I went with like my aunt and my mom, and we'd never been there before. I would have really liked to have seen an entire, like, let me give you the overview of your experience. It smelled good, like heavy hands in a good way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to know all of these things because I'm paying a lot for it. And you're very vulnerable, I feel like, with, I think, services, because it's like dedicated time with a person, not just like massages, but I mean, like, even like the pest guy, right? Like, is he going to actually get rid of, you know, the black widows? Like, it means something if there is an influencer that will talk about that. I no longer have to be scared of spiders, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And people want to know it from a friend too, because there's so many review sites, and I feel like they're so skewed towards negative reviews or like paid reviews. And like technically some influencers could be a paid review, but back to like the Alex Earl conversation, it means so much more when it's coming from someone that feels like your friend to make those service decisions.
For sure.
Also reminds me of something that, like, as far as like the negative positive review thing is, if you are working with an influencer and they do have like something negative to say in their overall review, and it's not like, it's okay to have like some negativity to go with the positivity, because it does help make it feel more authentic. It's okay for like, if the the guy, that the pest control guy came to the house and like everything about it was great, but like maybe he was 15 minutes late. Like, that's a real thing that, like, okay, I know that, but like, is that going to be a reason I'm not going to use the service? Probably not, if everything else about it was good. So take, like, when you're having conversations with your influencers, if they have any constructive criticism for you on like anything that didn't work for that service for them, let them know that they are free to like talk about that in a genuine way in their content, because a lot of times they are afraid to like share that part with in their content, like, because they don't want to be like blacklisted with the brand. But if they're describing their experience, which was overall good, and there is like one bad mark on it, that's not going to skew the content in a bad way. It is going to make their audience like believe them more.
Totally. And it's also going to make them more apt to want to do the collaboration. I actually have a friend that is an influencer, and it's so funny you say that, because it reminded me of it, who sent me an email she got from a cleaning company that wanted to work with her. They would like clean her apartment in exchange for the TikTok. And it was like 2 days ago. And they were saying like, we want you to be super authentic about your experience, like no talking points required. And she was like, how cool. Like, I don't know, what a cool opportunity. And like, I'll just be honest. And I think that really is important, because it's like, if they had come to her and said like, you have to say that it took place in 40 minutes, even if it took place in 3 hours, like, come on, that's not a narrative and that's not fair. But if you really do give that opportunity, I hope Rachel's okay. If you really do give the creators the full opportunity as well, they're also going to be way more interested in promoting, even just trying.
Yeah. No scripts in 2023.
No scripts. No scripts.
No scripts as well. Like, not just services. That's something that like I leaned into, even like in the fashion industry. Like, if they like are going on like a TikTok video or a YouTube video or whatever and saying that like, okay, that I sent them jeans, but like maybe the zipper broke or they didn't fit properly or whatever, I can rectify that situation. And if they let me know that before like the video is filmed, I'm okay with you going in and saying like, okay, the zipper was broken, but like we went ahead, like I emailed my person, I got it taken care of, they sent me a new pair. That speaks to the customer service of the brand.
Yeah.
So all of that, like if they can share the bad part, but then how the brand or you rectified that situation, that is ultimately goes down as a positive review, even though there was a negative aspect to it.
I agree. All right. Ready for the next question. What are your thoughts on employee ambassador programs acting as influencers? So employee ambassador programs acting as influencers. Thoughts?
I was curious about this one. Do you guys think they mean using like the brand's employees to like create content on their own personal pages?
Yes.
I'm thinking of like a specific, remember we talked about Set Active during the...
Yes.
I can speak directly to this because I did this at Fabletics, Frame, every company I've worked for. I think it's a great idea in terms of creating content. The only caveat is it's actually within FTC guidelines that as an employee, you have to disclose that you're an employee. So that I think might skew the potential for conversion, but it's really great in terms of if you're needing content in a snap to put an outfit on someone that you can easily get content from, right? So I think if it's for content purposes, great. For actually converting, I'm not sure it's the strongest pool of people to use, but just make sure you have them disclose or else you could get into some trouble with the FTC.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say that it's something that, especially if this person, like this group of people is also like managing your entire like influencer, like all of your influencers and everything, my concern with it is, and I know we've all talked about this before, as far as like it being a strategy, especially to like get things off the ground, but can be challenging to be sustainable. Like once you have a whole book of influencers that you're supposed to manage as well, it's also hard to make sure that like that person is taking the time to get in front of the camera and create content as well. So keep in mind that is like just might not be sustainable in the long term.
I love them for content creation, and not just because we have our own GRIN ambassador program as well too, but it is true. It's from a content creation point where it really because for us, and I think this speaks to like services and technology, there's no one that knows your brand like your employees, right? Like they know the ins and outs, they know how to kind of represent it, and it like scratches this like creative itch for people as well too. And it puts more faces out there than just like the one person that is managing like a particular channel. So I'm a big advocate for it, for sure.
I also, though, on the other side, like, because I do have a couple issues beyond the sustainability portion of it, is that if you're going into it and like looking for someone to be like the content creator, like Kristen was mentioning, but also needing to like manage your influencers, a lot of time it's like a very different like right and left brain thing. So it's not a bad thing for the person who's managing your influencers not to be able to like create content themselves. Like they might just not be a creative brain. So just something to think about as well when you're like, if you are like looking for someone to hire, that they might not do both, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to be like a great influencer manager as well.
Yeah.
I would also tread lightly in this like easily canceled culture. I've seen a couple things on TikTok where there's like a new trend that comes out attributed like mainly towards an influencer. They find out they're part of the family that runs this company, to where it starts getting called out on. So I would just say if you're doing it as like an influencer strategy, I don't super recommend it. And if you're doing it, to just tread lightly around it.
I like that. Good points. All right, next question. Where do you see crowdsourcing going? We need better ways to harvest constructive crowd feedback via influencer channels like comments on YouTube. Do you see there being maybe a technology, or what are your guys' thoughts on kind of aggregating all of the feedback?
Crowdsourcing in what way though? Like,
yeah, I don't know that it was used in the way that I traditionally think crowdsourcing. So I'm glad for like the second portion. So let's think of it as we need better ways to harvest
like sentiment analysis.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Like, how do I know the comments without it being manually done?
Caroline, take it away.
Well, let me tell you about a little thing I built once upon a time called my sentiment analysis tracker. Okay, so you have to manually build a sentiment analysis tracker for the most part right now still, because of the fact that Gen Z's comments are still so weirdly written that everything that is scraping the comments still doesn't understand what it's saying. Let me explain why. When I tried to use one of the actual like robotic sentiment scrapers, when it says things from Gen Z like, oh my God, literally slay, hit me with a truck, all the sentiment thinks that the majority of the comments are about murder. Like I ran campaigns for Jack in the Box for a year and a half, and all of the comments, when I put them into the one tool that exists in the world that does that, were about murder, because they're all like, yes, like I would give my organs for this sandwich, because they're all from Gen Z. So with that,
I think
context matters.
Like that.
No, literally, context matters. But Gen Z has ruined sentiment, which is why every time I see those comments, I'm like, imagine if a pilgrim read this. So I built a sentiment tracker manually, because what I had to do was figure out how to do that with a human aspect. So what you have to do, everyone listening, is go to exportcomments.com, which is a real website. Get the version that you pay one time for. It's like $10 you have to pay, because otherwise it only exports comments up to 1,000 comments per post. You put the URL of the post in this thing. It spits out every single comment on the post in a CSV, so comma separated value sheet. And it separates it by the influencer name, the influencer handle, the comment itself, and the time, whatever else. What you can do is you can take the influencer name and the comment. You can create your own like titles and categories. And what I would do is I would take the influencer name, the comment itself, and I would make new headers, which was like overall theme of comment. So it would be like brand love, influencer love, whatever. I would do positive, negative, neutral.
Intent to buy.
Yeah. And then the last one was something around whether like the kind of the overall grand topic of the comment. So if it was just talking about, emoji usage, if it was like just random like love about the influencer, but most importantly, if it was intent to purchase or intent to buy. So that was anything around like, oh my God, that sandwich looks so good, I'm going to go get it. If we're talking about Jack in the Box, or like, oh my God, those jeans are so cute, like I'm going to go to the website. And so although really manual, I would have an intern do this.
Side note.
You can create a pivot table where you're plugging all this in, and from the thousands and thousands of comments, you can say, X% of these comments showed intent to purchase. And from there, you can look at the key learnings and say, okay, maybe from all the influencers that lived in this DMA, all the influencers that posted content that actually were eating the sandwich, all the influencers that held the sandwich within the first 5 seconds of their video, you can start to take key learnings and then make future recommendations to show that the majority of the sentiment analysis where intent to purchase or intent to buy came from things that you can actually like pick up in patterns. And truly, like some of the largest brands that I ran campaigns for wanted that kind of sentiment analysis used, because it really is like the conversation taking place in the comments that should be like scanned and optimized, because that's like community.
Yeah.
It's really manual, but the only other kinds of like AI devices that do scan that are pretty complex, and they do have trouble spitting out and understanding like effectively if a comment is not picking up murder.
You almost need a little tie or an integration with Urban Dictionary to like translate what the actual words are.
Yeah.
At least you have a system.
No, literally, like I remember it's brick outside, and it didn't know that it meant it was cold. It just thought that like there was stacks of bricks outside, and like that's not, it means it's cold. Urban Dictionary is needed. So the point is you can do it. It's manual, but it is a really cool way to measure it. So
and if you're struggling to like prove your program right now too, where like maybe you're not seeing like the conversions you're looking for, or you're not seeing, as much content as you're looking for, look to sentiment analysis as another way to prove that you're doing something effective in marketing for your program too.
You could also, I would say, leverage sentiment analysis for a specific creator and a specific post versus all of them to see like, is it maybe worth engaging with a specific influencer and creator at a deeper level, because this is the sentiment from those posts. So because it's so manual, but now Caroline has broken down this manual process for us, because it's so manual, you can now leverage this from a very like strategic standpoint to, I don't know, get more budget, do more things.
I'm just trying to remember the one sentiment analysis tool that is what it is that I want to tell you guys the name of.
Well, we won't name any names. You've given the manual process.
Yeah, so, sorry.
You can slack us afterwards when you do find that. All right. So here's the next one. What advice or suggestions do you have on leveraging influencers for nonprofits? In this case, one focused on criminal justice reform. We can get niche with the answers, but I think in general, I've gotten a lot of nonprofit questions when I talk to people. So what kind of advice or suggestions do you give for influencer marketing for nonprofits?
I've actually run campaigns for St. Jude, Susan G. Komen, and a couple nonprofits. So I definitely feel comfortable speaking to it. I don't want to like overtake anybody else that does. But for those two specifically, those are obviously breast cancer related. So that's easier to do because there's a storyline and those are keyword related. But for the one that's more criminal justice related, this is a little niche, but kind of weirdly relative. I actually minored in women's studies and was like a campus representative for the Center for Women's Health and Human Rights on my campus. And with that, there's a lot of criminal justice rallies and like people that were nano influencers within their campuses that wanted to go to like anti-shackling rallies and different things that were putting a lot of content out for those kind of systems. And my advice to you is to leverage those college students that are on their campuses creating content and being advocates. Hercampus.com is a college only college blog or college influencer network that you can reach out to and connect you with college influencers all around the country. There's chapter presidents at almost every school, and they have people that do like a influencer of the year. A lot of them are people that are doing things like that for the good of their, community, for the good of criminal activism, et cetera. And so I would really look into that, because I think that kind of influencer is going to be mainly in college. I think when you get more into like the professional services side, career side, that's going to be more on the education, like full time. They're not going to want to be doing it like on the influencer side as much. So that would be
I would also suggest what came to mind is true crime influencers, specifically like true crime podcasts. Like I would go after them because they're constantly talking about justice, criminal justice. The niche is there.
True crime YouTube also is a big thing.
I love that.
I will also say I am seeing this kind of surge with the nonprofits. And I think why we follow influencers is not to get all the best products, but a lot of the ones that I tune into their content, and when I am on Instagram, like one example is Shanae Alexander. She really promotes registering to vote and voting. And I know she's been contracted to do a couple things around that. And so I think while there's no physical product to give, like for criminal justice reform, what are we going to send them? You just have to be a little bit more creative. But I do think there is a need out there. And the influencers that have that a part of their passions and promote that online, I think would be more than willing to discuss. So it's going to require a larger outreach strategy and a little bit of creativity. So maybe it's a Zoom session, maybe you're offering them some insight and feedback and kind of that two-way street. So I think it definitely is possible. And I'm really excited to see this more expanded in the future.
For philanthropy.
I think that you have to find the people who are passionate in general when it comes to nonprofits. And maybe it's also one of these areas of influencer marketing where it's not about like the numbers game. It's not about finding 1,000 people. It's more about finding maybe 10 really solid people who have a large voice. And I think that's also kind of where influencers turn into almost like the key opinion leaders, right? So it's a smaller pool of people, but they have a larger voice, especially kind of in the nonprofit space. So that's where I look at. But such great advice, ladies.
I think we're seeing that too with climate change. Like we're seeing climate change specific influencers that I think they're really leading the charge in the nonprofit space in terms of using influencers and their voice.
True. Love it. That. Okay. This is a little switch from nonprofit to YouTube. How do you suggest monetizing YouTube shorts? Do you guys have a suggestion for that?
Great question. I can kind of take that one. I think it applies to a lot of the questions we get. If we knew, we would for sure tell you is the answer. What it's going to require is testing. That really is the key. I think if every brand knew, we would be doing it and telling you guys. But unfortunately, we do need that testing. And per brand, per nonprofit, you're going to be needing to test the length of the video, the type. Are you reusing the content? Are you using different music? Does it need to be a whole new piece of content? Because it is so new, we don't have a ton of insights yet into shorts analysis, I would say. There's a few out there, but it's still such a new platform that testing is really key for this newer type of.
I would say almost every brand I've talked to that has mentioned YouTube Shorts has said that like they are like going to be diving into it for 2023, but I haven't talked to anyone that has said that like we have jumped into the pool and we're testing. So definitely like start jumping into the pool testing, and then like as we get more data, like Rachel said, we'll share it.
Yeah, and I would also too, since we're already seeing kind of differentiation of Reels and TikToks. Some are performing better on Reels versus TikToks. This might be a space where you test out some Reels, some TikToks, but then also create separate content based off your findings there. So just continue to dive in to everything and keep testing, like Rachel was saying.
And I think it also depends on like the influencer and creator that you're testing with as well too. Some may crush it on Reels, some may crush it on TikTok, and then surprise you with like a YouTube short, and you just kind of never know. I think always be testing is like the key to any successful program. So this one it's really going to scratch the itch for Caroline because it's a Web3 question. And I know this is your passion here. So how should brands adjust strategy with a loss in data with the emergence of Web3?
Well, that's a fair question. I mean, it's kind of what I talked about in the sense that like community and authenticity are going to be the currency. And I think losing some data, at least the data that we've been currently looking at in terms of the back end of like, how do we evaluate if someone's going to be a good fit metric wise? What we're not going to see there, we need to make up for in terms of what we can see openly and publicly within their content. And there's so much that we can analyze there. At least for me in my eyes, like I feel like I can see immediately when I scroll through a creator's account, like what their page is about, the general reach they have in terms of like if I can see the amount of views they have, average video based on their follower size, the types of comments they're getting in terms of like if they're engaged and if they're engaging back, if there's thoughtfulness in their responses, which is a obvious key pointer to community, and the fact that there's dialogue, and also just knowing that like consistency is going to be key. Like you don't want to see someone that's just posting one time once a week. It's just like not the way it is anymore. Like we need way more than that. And like the analytics and data that we used to be looking at and analyzing historically, like that wasn't even really a key metric that we were looking at, like the consistency of posting. So I would say like rewrite your own metrics, knowing that like we don't need to look at those historic metrics as the measurements of success anymore. Because when we look at recently the most memorable pieces of content and influencers that created them, they probably weren't like exact replicas of those ideal metrics at the time. They probably just were real people or doing a really good job hitting those community pillars. And like think about the type of person and the really high match lookalike audience that you want to be reaching, and think about like if your influencer probably has that following, because there are some weird wormholes and you can find them, and there are some audiences that get pretty granular. So like you can find them and you don't need to see numbers to see that they exist. You can literally just like read their comments and be like, wow, this is a literal community of people talking to each other. This is where I need to get my product. And so I really encourage you to get on the native platforms that you are going to be selling on, aka TikTok, Instagram, whatever it may be, and familiarize yourself with those communities, because you'll feel like a much stronger end user. If all these platforms are taken away from you, which is the whole concept of Web3, you need to understand like the human and the storytelling side, because that's never going to go away. So take away all the numbers and the data and like let the people like talk and sell your product. That's my advice.
Love that. Now, I know that we're coming up on time, so I think we have time for a couple more questions. Is there a possibility that creator rates may go down, but the company's budgets will go up? For example, more creators, influencers, but less spending per each, specifically with direct pay. I think this is more towards like the prediction of the creator rate bubble burst. That was your prediction, Rebecca.
I feel like part of the creator rate bubble burst that we're talking about is also attributing to kind of just a lot of companies potentially like dialing back their spend in terms of a recession. So I don't really see the other side bubbling up unless you're doing really well. Like, by all means, please invest your money into these creators that are doing amazing things for you. But I personally don't really see it happening on the flip side as much.
I agree. Oh, sorry. When I was like, my initial prediction on like the bubble burst is more about like, it's from everything that we've talked about. I've read a lot of stuff about it on LinkedIn as well, on just the rates becoming unsustainable for brands.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just means that they're going to like kind of get to a point where they're saying we're not paying those rates, and that will have to cause the influencers' rates to come back down. I don't know if I see it happening in the aspect that like
saying you don't see the narrative, the brand itself's budget growing and the influencers rate decreasing. I think in my head, the only way that narrative could be spelled out is if, in theory, if a brand, let's say, has $100 to spend in a week and on their influencers, and they have become so familiar with their program and with the influencer landscape and with finding the right people that they're instead able to gift efficaciously to all the influencers that they need and get amazing quality content with that gifted program. And they still end up with, let's say, $80, and they can roll that $80 over to week 2. Theoretically, then they have $180. If that's like what you mean, and that in your mind is growing your budget, then like, I think you could probably do that. And I absolutely recommend cutting spend in a lot of strategy calls, because I do think that there are a lot of brands that don't need to be spending money when they have products that their average order value is really high, and a product that is super high in demand, and an influencer, archetype that there's a plethora of. So if you look at it in that way, then sure. But otherwise, I agree with the other gals that like, absolutely not. Sadly.
like your budget for influencer like might still increase, but I think like the issue that is going to cause like the bubble burst is going to be more of like, you're not going, like, brands are unable to justify the rates. Like, they are seeing the return.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they can't justify that's like that high flat fee payment. So like, while budget might still increase, and like maybe that is exactly what you're meaning in the question, then like you'll have like less budget per creator. But I think it's going to just be about like what you as a brand can justify internally based on the return that you get from that channel.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd agree too. I'd say it's budgets increasing for things that are for strategies that are successful in marketing is consistent. So if you are crushing it with influencer marketing, your budget is just going to go up. I think that it gives the marketer the opportunity to be really strategic with that increased budget, right? So if I gain success on a product seeding influencer program only, now can I introduce commissions on top of it? And maybe I want to start, creator licensing as well too, and leveraging that and putting money into that to get maybe a different creator mix as well too. Maybe now I can get like that celebrity creator to see if that's worth it or it's not. Like, I almost think like an increased budget allows you to test out other ways that influencer marketing can be successful for your brand. That's a good question. I have one final question because I know we've got to wrap it up. Do you believe product seeding? Oh, well, this is timely. Do you believe that product seeding will still be one of the best practices for influencer marketing? And if so, how can you show your marketing team, CFO, an ROI on that to scale product seeding?
We just talked about this. We're doing an exercise with one of our prospects right now of, when you send out product, you obviously want them to post, but if it's just product seeding, you can't guarantee it. So how do you measure the success of that? And how do you know what you need to do ongoing to either scale up your ROI or continue, at the rate you're going, right? So I think I have two thoughts on this. One, I think product seeding will always be a component. I think influencers may be less excited or open to just product gifting because there's just so much saturation. I see so many influencers posting like their boxes of PR and product, and it's just so much that it becomes kind of wasteful. So I think product seeding will exist, but influencers might be a little bit more selective of what they decide to be open to or agree to. But alongside of that strategy, if you do continue with product seeding, I think it's really important to keep track of, okay, when I send out 50 products, only 20 of those influencers actually post. And then of those 20 that post, only 5 conversions come in. I think you have to look at that ratio to understand if it's actually fruitful or not. And look at the cost that you're putting into sending that product. But I think it will always be there. I think it's just something to be mindful of. You don't want to waste and be strategic about when you do send product, which influencers are accepting it the most. Is it, the nano? Is it the micro? Is it your skincare girlies? Is it your ASMR YouTubers, right? So kind of like get really specific and track like who's really providing, value to your product gifting.
I totally agree with the first portion of it. I would stray away from looking at conversions when talking about gifting and look more into potentially like sentiment analysis like Caroline is talking about, because if we can't really control a lot of the space where things are like conversions are happening in a gifted campaign, what we can look at and control-ish is comments of like intent to buy and like which of those influencers that are making a difference with their audience resonating with the product is kind of like the space that I'm thinking.
Yeah, in a perfect world, I completely agree. But people are always telling us we need to see conversion. So I speak from that lens of we totally get like you need to provide some sort of value. And if you do work for a company that is like, we need to see ROI from a conversion perspective, that's one way to measure it. But I totally agree. It should never just be about conversions and it should never just be about brand awareness. I think effective influencer campaigns are a blend of both. So balance.
For sure.
And based on this question and then mentioning the CFO, I'm assuming that they're looking at conversions.
Yeah.
But I do think that also, like, based on what Kristen said, like every brand is like very different on what they consider like fruitful when the conversions do start coming in. Look at your margins and see what you're able to afford as far as that goes. I've talked to some brands where like one conversion coming in is all make this that's like the whole campaign worth it. And I've talked to some that like every influencer needs to provide like 3 conversions to make that like to bring them in the green. So like every brand is going to be different. Every margin is different. Every price point is different. So look at that internally and come up with what you're able to do.
I've got one final thought. I know that we're at the top of the hour, but I would also say product seeding should always be part of it. I think that from a CFO and trying to showcase like a return on investment and like this is what we're going to do, I would leverage a product seeding activation as a way to forecast the conversions, right? So I would take like a product seeding program and then from that percentage, to your point, Kristen, all right, who are the people that post? Okay, from the people that post, what kind of metrics do I get out of that? It could be conversions, impressions, and whatnot. All right, from that, what are the influencers that I get from that then will be like my converting influencers, right? And when you, I think, present it to your CFO from a forecasting perspective, because that is their language, then they can see, all right, then I've got to fill the top with this much to get this amount of conversions, right? Like I totally feel strongly that product seeding is great for introducing your brand and from a forecasting perspective. And on that note, I want to thank you for taking so much time with me to get through all of these questions. Just thank you for your brains, ladies. You always have so much to say, and I appreciate your insights and your time.
Thank you for having us.